Transporter. Is it going to be a win or a bin? Let's have a quick read through of the description on Steam. Transporter is a modern transport sim game combining realistic simulation with indie game style, old school grid environment, newest features, don't quite know what that means, and modern transport options. Transport a wide variety of cargo and passengers over the road, rail, and water, and create your own transport company. Off the bat, this does look like a city builder game, maybe like some of the earlier Sim Cities, things like that, maybe even with a little bit of city skylines to it visually, but you can't actually build any buildings, as far as I can tell, barring ones that impact your transport. The game is, of course, Transporter. The game's about transport, shipping, air, rail, road. Lots of different vehicles to choose from. But ultimately, the aim is to connect certain buildings that produce resources with buildings that need those resources. And they then get pumped back into the towns and cities that are on the map to then allow them to level up. At least that's what I think. The game's not overly clear, and we'll come to that at certain points during the video. I'm going to do this slightly differently for once. I'm going to do the bad things first and move on to good things. And in a way, it might be because I'm slightly conflicted as to whether or not this is going to be a good game or not. But I'm just going to mix it up a bit. So when I first got the game, it was kindly provided as a free key by the developer, so much appreciated. There was no tutorial then, so I was thrown into a game mode of my choosing. You could do a couple of predefined maps that they give you. You can do free play mode, which is where you can effectively customize your own map. You can play scenario mode, which is where they have two scenarios for you, or coming later, presumably, there is a career mode that I can see, but it's grayed out. So I just went for one of the scenarios, why not? And I tried it as well on some of the other settings and modes even. But there is no tutorial, there's no explanation as to what you're supposed to do, it's just a blank canvas. I literally had no idea where to start, nothing was intuitive. So actually, I messaged the developer on Steam, and he, or she, of course, soon added a tutorial into the game. And fine, it's a text tutorial, but it's not a tutorial as such. It doesn't get you to do anything much. It just explains a little bit about what things are. It doesn't really give you any indication of what the end goal is, but it's something, so fair play to them for getting that out so quickly. However, this should not have been released, at least because when I got hold of the key, it was actually released, and it is on Steam now as an early access release game, but it should never have been released without a tutorial. I mean, it does now, but it's still not much comp. As briefly mentioned there's no clue as to what to do and why you need to do it. And I think of the game like this, because there's lots of things going on. There's buildings, all do different things. You can click on them, it tells you what they are, and it makes sense to a certain level, you know, but there's a lot that's involved here. You've got different modes of transport, so many different types of vehicle, and you are literally stuck at a point with no end goal. And that bit, certainly no understanding of the end goal in place, is something that isn't right to me. There needs to be a very apparent, obvious thing. And yes, there is an objective that's tucked away at the top left-hand corner, but it's not thrust upon you. Nothing really is detailed as to why you're here. Of course, the game involves lots of buildings, so roads, train tracks, and those two things I don't think work particularly well. The snapping is non-existent. You can build straight bits of road, curved bits of road, or custom curves, which is just dragging and wiggling your mouse around to try and create a curve. I spent, and you'll probably see extracts of it in the video, I probably spent over half an hour trying to get two bits of road to connect on opposite sides of two islands connected by a bridge. The bridge itself was so hard to put down, and I don't know what I was doing wrong. It was working, and like in the sense of you could see the red color indicating you couldn't place it, but it looked like a perfectly valid placing. And because there's no real instruction to this, you don't know what it needs to be able to place those bridges, and then subsequently the roads off the back of that, you're trying to meander them into a certain position to get them to connect to different things, but I just wasn't getting any luck, and it was frustrating. I think there needs to be much better snapping, or some sort of more intuitive way of building the roads and rails on this. This one might just be me being a bit picky, but one of the scenarios in the game suggests in the description that shipping is going to be the key. So okay, you go off and build some ports and get some ships, but some of the ships don't carry the things that you need. So for example, in that particular campaign, or particular scenario even, you have to move, well, I decided to try and move some items over to a food factory. The shipping options, so there's a few types of ship that you can get, don't even allow you to carry the items that you need to carry or want to carry. So what's the point in that? Just didn't seem to make any sense to me. You're telling me to use shipping, which actually is the thing that led me to try and do the bridge thing, because the shipping wasn't working out for me, and then the bridge thing was really annoying as well because of the roads problem. And it just didn't seem to work out. Some of the ships don't even have a list of what they provide. You're supposed to hover over them and it tells you what they can carry. Some of the larger ships don't even tell you. And no, they don't carry anything, which is what I thought, because they don't pick up the items I want. And the ones that do list what they carry just don't allow you to carry the things that you need to carry. So it just seemed a little bit frustrating on that front. On a similar point, there is a custom map level that I created. So there's ways to create your own maps and things. And I decided to create a really small map just to try and learn the game with very few buildings that produce things and factories and cities and things like that. But one of the buildings, very few buildings that I needed, so I think it was tin cans I needed. I need aluminium and bauxite. I could get one of them, but I couldn't get the other. Forgive me if I've got the products wrong specifically, but ultimately my factory needed 2 items. Only one of them was available on the whole map. And yes, this was a customly generated map, but even if that's the case, it should be intuitive enough to not put buildings that you need that need resources that don't exist on the map. So I think in that sense, there's something broken and not worked out properly there. Although, I'll come on to the good things in a minute. Although the game is quite good looking, some of the screens are a bit confusing. So you can click on a building and there's lots of information, production. And initially, until I tried just to work it out myself, and it took a while, it takes a while to understand what the things mean on the building interface screen. So you're looking at details of the building and you've got a couple of different tabs. It's not immediately obvious as to what they represent. It does take a little bit of work out. Might just be me being stupid, but again, without a tutorial or even good tooltips within those building screens of those buildings, of those buildings, without tooltips, it's useless. I'm going to come on to some good things now, and there really are some good things. Now, I think it looks really nice. It's crisp, it's clean, the lighting's good. I think the buildings look nice until you zoom in a bit far and they become a bit ropey, but yeah, I'll overlook that. The user interface is excellent in terms of the way it's laid out, and everything in that sense is good quality. It really is. It's not rushed, and I think they've genuinely thought about how things are going to look for the player. The maps themselves are really big. So from the scenario map that you get chucked into, some of the pre-made maps they have available, and even the ones that you can build yourself. And in fact, I'll show you now some of the options that you can chuck into building your own map. You can make them massive. It can be absolutely gigantic, which is this huge sandbox you effectively have to play with. But yeah, I'll just show you as I'm talking now the screens that you can start clicking on and start customizing what's going to go on your map. There's loads here, and they've really thought about it. There's loads of different vehicles on here, tons of different lorries, tons of boats, tons of trucks, lorries. Really nice, individually designed as well. Spot on. Really good choice of things to do there. The game just has such a chilled feel to it. It doesn't feel like it's rushing you in any way. You take your time, just look around, click on things, read things, just take your time and just see what happens. There's no pressure at all in this, and because of that, it's just very laid back. So overall, under normal circumstances, because of the negatives, I would be telling people to steer clear of this, but actually I'm going to advise against that here, at least in part. Now, I think this game is very much incomplete. There's holes in it everywhere, and there's things that aren't great, but you can see what the developer is trying to do, and they do seem quite responsive. On the matter that I said about the tutorial, within a couple of days they put in a very vague text tutorial, but it's something. So they are responsive, and as long as they keep focused, because they've obviously done a lot so far, this could potentially be a really, really good game with so much enjoyable potential to it. And it is quite enjoyable, even just trying to fathom it, to be honest. It's still good. But for the £12 price tag, it might even be worth just grabbing now, because you can just watch it go through its journey of development, or keep an eye on it for a while and just see where it goes. But this will get somewhere in between as a rating, good and bad. But I would certainly say to not avoid this, but to keep an eye on it as a minimum, if the genre interests you, of course.